Yeah.
sense? I
Oh,
call
it
it,
totally
it's
makes
like a
sense.
giant game of musical chairs. We're all either,
Yeah.
I got to get a chair, I got to get a chair, I got to get a chair. But then when you get a chair, the scarcity doesn't go away because you got to get a chair again and you got to get a chair again. Or you just say,
Yeah.
screw it, I'm not going to play this game. And you sit on the sidelines. And that's not why
That's not
we're
the
here
answer either.
either. And
Yeah.
this dynamic happens individually, but it also happens collectively.
Yeah.
So you have people getting chairs and there's scarcity getting more chairs and more chairs. And you see more and more people who don't have a chair. People who are like,
Yeah.
oh, more, more, more. That's the answer. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Is creating less, less, less for others.
Yeah.
Because we don't get that abundance is an experience that comes from being part of something bigger than us, which is both our connection to the creator of this universe, but it's also our connection with
To
this
each other.
planet, with the
Mm-hmm.
resources in this universe, with each other.
Right.
Abundance is not a solo sport.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Teresa Romain, a trailblazer in transforming our relationship with money and abundance. Teresa has been an abundance coach and advocate for more than 27 years, and she's on a mission to shift people and society from a scarcity based mindset to one that's rooted in divine abundance and inherent worth. In this episode, we will dive deep into Teresa's journey from scarcity and fear to abundance and empowerment. She will share her powerful insights about the archetype of scarcity and the sacred archetype of abundance. Sounds juicy, doesn't it? Exploring how we've been taught to operate from a place of lack and how we can begin to experience abundance as something available to us in every moment. Teresa's passion is to help us break free from the old ways of doing money and step into a vision where everyone has what they need to prosper and thrive. Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio, Teresa. It's great to have you here today.
I'm truly honored. I'm really
Oh,
looking forward to this all day. So thanks for having me.
good. I've been looking forward to it as well. I love talking about abundance and, looking at the scarcity stuff that's going on out there and how do we really transform that. And I know this is deep into your body of work, so I'm excited to talk about that. Tell me where you're joining us from today.
So I live in a 165-year-old farmhouse in
Oh,
rural
cool.
Wisconsin, just outside of Wisconsin Dells, like the tourist mecca of the
Oh, well,
Midwest. But
no
yeah,
wonder
so
you were excited to get home. Is to get
yeah,
back to the farmland
get
and
back to home, get back to
yeah,
nature. I'll
yeah.
just say for those of you who are catching any video portion of this, a 165-year-old farmhouse does not have level 4s. So if the screen shakes on me, we're not having an earthquake. It's just what happens when I sometimes get too animated.
Oh, that's awesome. So, wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing that's the age of your house. And
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
finished building it the month that Abraham Lincoln was shot.
oh my gosh,
Yeah, so
that's
that's just kind of
crazy.
like crazy in my brain. Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
see houses like that in Europe, but you don't see houses like that in the
Yeah.
US very often. So
Yeah.
that's
It's nothing
super cool.
fancy. It's a very small, tiny old farmhouse, but it's still
Yeah, but
standing.
and it's farmland, and I
Yeah.
grew up in farm country
Yeah.
myself, so
Yeah.
I totally appreciate farmland and just what
Yeah.
that means,
And
that
we've
open
got 4
space. And
acres and an apple orchard and, and so it's like my sanctuary.
oh, that's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. Well, it's so good to get this time to spend with you today. We are going to be talking about your journey, about your wisdom, and really diving in here. So let's talk about the highlights and the lowlights of your journey that's gotten you to where you are today.
Oh, highlights, lowlights. Gosh, they're so intertwined. Let me
Isn't that the
begin.
truth?
Yeah, begin by saying one of the things that when I started my business 27 years ago, which kind of came out of one of the lowlights,
Mm-hmm.
one of the low moments in my journey was like when I was in college, I wanted to be a theology major, was planning to be a business, wanted to shift to theology, fed my soul. My mom was like, no, you got to make money. You got to make money. So I graduated with a business degree and a corporate job and moved to Chicago and did the corporate thing and made a lot of money and discovered I liked having a lot of money, but didn't like what I was doing. I wanted to make a difference in the world. So
Yeah.
I kept looking for my out and still I could make money. And that's when I met my husband, Dan, who introduced me to the world of network marketing. I went, here we go. Here we go. And so after we were married, I quit my 6-figure corporate job. We moved to Minnesota, bought a house, and we're going to build our business full time. And that didn't go as planned. We spent a
Yeah.
lot of money doing personal growth, personal development, traveling to the conferences, looking like we're successful, all the things. And as I always say, at the end of the first year, the only thing that was really growing rapidly was our debt. We were
Mm.
going through our savings, we were doing all of that. And so that was my first like really conscious experience of like scarcity. And I remember
Mhm.
going, on paper, everybody expected us to be successful. On paper, we should have been successful with our skill set and our talents, which just made me more like feeling ashamed because we weren't. Um, so it's like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And when we're legitimately open, the teachers appear. So that scarcity of getting into debt, etc., teachers showed up, classes showed up, things like that. That kind of led to me starting my business. It's like, ooh, I want to share what I'm learning with others. So that's how I
Right.
started my business 27
Yeah.
plus years ago. But from the beginning, I said, I am the poster child for that old saying, you teach best what you most need to learn
Oh, yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And
And then
that's so
practice
true
and
for so
practice
much
and
of us, many
practice.
of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that my highs and lows is just like the autobiography of me being a slow learner sometimes and still needing to learn more, and then thinking I got it figured out and forgetting to practice what I learned, and like that's it.
Yeah.
So one of my lowlights led to me starting my business. As I oftentimes say, in the first 10 months, 10 years of my business, I made a lot of money, and
Mhm.
that was cool. And I
Yeah.
loved what I was doing. But I was also spending a lot of money to make money, and I was spending
Mhm.
a lot of money to look abundant because I'm an abundance coach. So I have to look abundant. And I was also working all the time.
Yeah.
This was before Zoom. I used to work during the day. I do midday teleclasses. I do evening teleclasses, coaching clients 3, 4 days a week. Weekends was catching up and trying to get on the next
Oh,
week.
wow.
And so I could justify it because, but I love what I'm doing. And I did to one
Yeah.
degree. But at the same time, it's like, this isn't the life I wanted to live. This,
Right.
this isn't like that. I was also incredibly codependent financially with my husband at that
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
which is another low moment because I pretty much, it's like, in truth, back then I was so subconsciously desperate to know that I was loved and somebody wanted me that it was like, I'll do everything because here you are, proof that, I'm loved. And so he didn't make a lot of money. He got to do what he wanted to do. And I wanted him to be happy because if he was happy, then he would love me. This is the unhealthy codependent thinking that was going into my brain. And so I was carrying the debt that we had built up, before I started my business. Then I made some mistakes in my business. Then I did some stupid things in my business. Dan wasn't making money. So the debt was growing and growing, and I was carrying it all on top of
Mm.
it so that Dan thought we were okay. And I can look back and say, and also so that he wouldn't like try and tell me what I could or could not do because I'm just a little rebellious at times. I kept him in the dark. So
Mhm.
I always made sure our house looked good. But to do that, then my business carried the debt.
Yeah.
I literally drained the life out of my business to make our house look good. And I remember there was one day, 2005, I think it was, that I suddenly looked ahead and said, this train is
No
going to
more.
crash. Like,
Yeah.
I do not see a path to having the money to we need. And
Yeah.
long story short, another very low moment there. Dan was really big on we have to file bankruptcy. And I'm like, no freaking way. I'm an abundance coach. I teach people how to get debt free. I can't file bankruptcy. What would people think? That would look really bad. But he looked into it, and it was when they were changing the bankruptcy laws. And the attorney said, if you don't file by October, you probably won't be able to keep your farmhouse and your 4 acres.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
like, oh, I don't like that. So I had
Yeah.
to go through this soul searching of like, this is not the script I had played for solving this problem. This doesn't look good. And God knows I
Yeah.
like to look good. And But finally, I can still think of the day I was driving home and I just realized, like, wow, if I don't take this gift of bankruptcy, if I don't give myself the fresh start, like what a what a punishing, unforgiving, you know, like you made mistakes.
Yeah.
You did some things, but are you going to punish yourself? Like, I am never going to, am I going to drag this weight and try and like use it to prove? Or am I going to accept the gift of this, get the learning from it, and begin to build the life and relationship with Dan, etc., that is going to support me? So we
Oh,
did file
wow.
bankruptcy, and that was a low.
Yep.
And it led to the next 10 years where now that I didn't have that pressure to make money, I got that I didn't want to work as hard as I had been working. So I went
Mhm.
to the other extreme. You know what? If we really strip everything back and simplify everything, I don't have to make much money. I can just enjoy our garden and sleep and all this. So I literally took the 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 freedom that the bankruptcy gave us, and I said I'm not going to work that hard, and I simplified our life, and I cut my business back and brought in just enough income, Dan and I, to pay the bills. And for a long time, I was so happy because it was like I had space and I could do other things and I could feed my soul again and all of these things
You tend
until
to
the day.
warn yourself rugged.
Yeah. And I could just like, but it was that either or. It was either I make a lot of money and work hard, or I live simply, but I have a lot of time and energy, but then I didn't have the money to do things I
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it all came to a head on April 25th, 2016. A series of things happened that weekend. It was a Monday. And I woke up and I still can feel it in my body. I literally felt like a shrunken shell of the person I was created to be and wanted to be. I literally felt like I was a raisin and I was shriveling up from the
Oh,
inside
wow.
out. And
Wow.
I showed up on a call with my coach that day, Pat, in tears. And I just burst out, "This isn't living, Pat." And it was this moment of truth that shattered through all my excuses and all my justifications and all my making it okay and fine and all of that. And that was a low light that was also instantly a highlight of my journey, because that was the day that I began to kind of like change the trajectory and start to move into the work that I'm doing now. It's when I took a stand for myself and for my clients and people, like, why is it that no matter how much money we make or how little money we make, like, why is it that the scarcity and that fear of scarcity and that sense of not enough never really goes away, no matter what we do, no matter what we have? Why do we
Yeah.
still kind of live in and react to that not enough or that fear of not enough? And that became the 7-year faith journey that just was like, okay, I'm good. There's something, there's a missing piece, and I'm here to find it. And that's kind of evolved into the work now that I've been doing the past few years and into the big vision that I'm finally ready to actively start to step into, which is really about changing the narrative about abundance and money and
Mm.
scarcity and how we do money, because I'm not the only one. Like, scarcity is baked in to our
Yeah.
culture. And we don't even
Yeah.
see it. We call it life. We call it reality. We call it that's just the way it is, but it's not. So
Yeah.
those are some of my
Wow,
highlights
what
and
a story,
lowlights.
Teresa. Yeah, and I really appreciate the vulnerability and the sharing of that, because this has become your, you're calling that body of work that, and when you were shrunk up in that raisin, it was like, wait a minute, I have more to do here. And
Yeah,
there's
I'm meant to be more. This is
yeah,
not what I was created
yeah,
for.
yeah,
So something's missing. What is it? And
yeah.
then I began a journey, which is, that could be another whole long story of the journey. And I think it all ends on the high where it's still baking, and I still don't know where I'm going, and I'm stepping into something new, and it scares me. But
And
those
we're always
wounded
in that
parts.
space, right? There's
Oh
there's always
yeah.
this next evolution of our businesses
Right.
that's
But
there
that
to
wounded part of me that was so afraid of telling people the truth, that I have to look good, that tried to hide the parts, like, like that's not there. And I'm clear that that shell of needing to hide and protect, which also blocks, that's what's opening up and allowing me to tell the truth and to
Mm.
tell my story and to step into this mystery of this next mission and all of that sort of stuff, because you can't do
Yeah.
that and hide and protect yourself at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's been a story
That's
of a lot of healing and grace too.
yeah. What is some of the what's the biggest lesson you took away from that?
Then my definition of abundance was inaccurate, and so it is for most people.
Yeah. So
So
let's talk about that.
I
Yeah.
was trying to get something that isn't even what I thought it was.
Right. Yeah, I think I've heard you say abundance is not something you achieve or obtain. It's an
Yeah.
experience available to you in every moment.
Yep.
So I love this. Tell me more about what that means.
Well, w- since the This Ain't Living, as I was baking it, one of my coaches said, if there's a word that you use in your work a lot, you need to define what you mean by it. And I had
Mhm.
artfully dodged defining abundance for a long time because I'll be whatever it needs to be, like that whole type of thing. And but it was like, okay, abundance is it. And I remember I was sitting right in this chair, and I got still and I asked God, because that's my source, and it was just like, okay, what is abundance? And it just came down, and I put it out, and I'll tell you what came through, and then I tried to poke holes in it for a year. And it was this: abundance is knowing. And I don't mean in your head, I mean knowing
In
that
your
you are part
body.
of something
Hmm.
bigger than you and your individual efforts, your individual lives, something that is inherently loving and powerful and creative and resourceful and generous and infinite and intelligent and eternal. And in that, you have access to all that you need.
Hmm. I
And
love
it was
that.
like, that? But what about money? But what, like all of the things. Suddenly, it wasn't something to get. It wasn't, we define abundance in reaction to scarcity. It's what I call the
Hmm.
archetype of scarcity. Scarcity
Yeah.
is not enough,
I saw,
deficient.
yeah. So talk about that too, the archetype of scarcity,
So
because
the
I caught
archetype
that in
is,
your,
yeah, the archetype of scarcity, I call it the giant game of musical chairs we created for our world.
hmm
But it's
hmm
like it splits the field. There's scarcity, not enough, deficiency, lack, which if you want to talk about money, it's like, ooh, don't want that we got to live on money. So
hmm
so the solution to not enough, according to our mind, is, well, then I need more, plenty, lots.
hmm
So suddenly abundance becomes this destination to reach, a goal to achieve, a place to get to, measured by external results, measured by quantity. But if abundance is a destination, a place to get to, then it's separate from you and it's not here now, which is
mm.
instantly going to create an experience of scarcity. So let me try and get there. Let me try and get there, thinking that getting there is going to be the answer. And you can look at my life. We have two strategies to get there. We try to make more, do more, be more, have more. Did that.
Yeah.
Or we try and spend less, da 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 da. But even the spending less is so one day we'll get to this magical place where we'll have plenty more a lot and we
Yeah.
won't feel scarcity. But it
Yeah.
doesn't work, because once you have abundance as something separate from you and measured by externals and a destination, then no matter where you get, it's going to continue to be a destination. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Well, I thought when I'd have this, it would be enough, but it's still not enough. How come I still have to do more and do more? Does this make
Yeah.
sense? I
Oh,
call
it
it,
totally
it's
makes
like a
sense.
giant game of musical chairs. We're all either,
Yeah.
I got to get a chair, I got to get a chair, I got to get a chair. But then when you get a chair, the scarcity doesn't go away because you got to get a chair again and you got to get a chair again. Or you just say,
Yeah.
screw it, I'm not going to play this game, and you sit on the sidelines. And that's not why
That's
we
not
were
the
here
answer either.
either. And
Yeah.
this dynamic happens individually, but it also happens collectively.
Yeah.
So you have people getting chairs and there's scarcity getting more chairs and more chairs. And you see more and more people who don't have a chair. People who are like,
Yeah.
oh, more, more, more. That's the answer. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Is creating less, less, less for others.
Yeah.
Because we don't get that abundance is an experience that comes from being part of something bigger than us, which is both our connection to the creator of this universe, but it's also our connection with
To
this
each other.
planet, with the
Hmm.
resources in this universe, with each other.
Right.
Abundance is not a solo sport. It's not about, I got my chair, yay.
Yeah. That's
It's
that's
about
really
we
wise,
all
Teresa.
have the resources we need.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you work with your clients to help them drop into that presence of now?
Well, the first thing I do is I embody that new definition in an experience they have every moment of their life, so that it
Hmm.
starts to sink in and they can get it. So I'm going to walk you through it right now, and I'm just simply going to ask you to just consciously take some long, slow, deep breaths.
Okay.
And just notice as you inhale that oxygen that gives you life, you didn't have to make the oxygen yourself.
Right.
You didn't have to earn it. You didn't create it. You didn't manifest it. It's already there,
Yeah.
built into the design of this universe by the creator of this universe, the source of life that wants all living beings to have all they need to fully live, right?
Right.
All you do is open to receive it.
Yeah.
Then our bodies know how to utilize it in ways that supports health and well-being and life, knows how to distribute it. And our bodies also know how to recognize sufficiency, that moment where, okay, I'm good, at which case we exhale
Hmm.
carbon dioxide that doesn't support life and well-being for us, but does
Hmm.
for the plants and trees, who of course then release oxygen. So anytime you think, oh, I'm the one who makes abundance and whatever, no, you're part of something bigger. The
Oh,
question
good.
is, do you block the flow or do you participate in it? Oh, I'm not going to inhale. Not only are you blocking the flow and creating unnecessary scarcity for you, then that's
Right.
being, the trees aren't getting your carbon dioxide. Or out of scarcity, I'm going to hold on to this oxygen because what if there's not some next? See, this is what happens. And the other big thing is, because we've got abundance associated with more, lots, plenty, we, especially in American society, we don't know how to recognize sufficiency. There is no sufficiency in the archetype of scarcity, because whatever you have, it's not enough. And by
Mm.
sufficiency, I mean that Goldilocks point of not too much, not too little, just right. Just right with the resources you need, which is money, which is energy, which is love and relationship, which is
It's
social
all things
interaction,
life.
which is contribution, all of the, which is the time you invest in things. And
Yeah.
if people, how often, like me, I had lots of money, but I didn't have enough of other things.
Right. How
And
how
then
do you
when I went
balance that out
simple,
between
I
the
had
time and the
plenty
money?
of these things, but I didn't have money. And this is the pattern. This is what we've all been taught. And we think this is the way it works. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're the only living beings on this planet who play a giant game of musical chairs. You look at the
Yeah.
birds, you look at the bugs, you look at the bees, you look at the plants, you look at the animals. They all know, hey, I'm part of something bigger here. And I
Yeah.
receive the resources that are available. And then I'm part of giving resource. Like,
Yeah.
abundance is not a solo sport. Just think about the bees. We'd all
Yeah.
be going hungry without the bees.
That's really a great analogy, and I love that how you are really bringing it back into more balance between the time, the money,
Yes.
and really looking at it holistically from a life
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
and receiving from the perspective of our bodies, receiving in our bodies, and really becoming open to that receiving. Because I often find so often with my clients is that they can get caught up into a story, right? Here's the story, and that story starts to just, take over all things. And the body is no longer open to the receiving, and just like that scarcity
Sure.
archetype starts to show up.
Yep. And
So,
and that's the story we've all bought into of scarcity.
mhm,
But
yeah,
you ask how I work with my clients. So most of my clients, they want a new experience of money. Like,
yeah,
they're in the
yeah,
scarcity around money.
yeah, hmm,
And they're very much in the, if I just make more, that's gonna, all of that. What they don't realize is that um that the root of their relationship with money comes in terms of the story, conscious and subconscious, they have about themselves as being deficient or lacking or not enough or worthless in some way. We all have those wounds that have us believe this about ourselves. And I did. You could see it in my story. And without realizing it, they're trying to use money or their accomplishments or their achievements or whatever to prove that belief wrong. If I could just have a big house, see, I'm enough. If I could just get this degree, if I'm enough. Or even me, good Catholic girl that I was raised, oh, I'm just going to live really simply and that makes me spiritual and that makes me enough. Like we'll do all the stuff. So because of the definition of abundance and the idea we have that it's a place to get to and it's going to give us joy and freedom and all this, from that wound of not enough, that experience of deficiency we have within ourselves, from wounding, from stories that blocks it. Oh, I can't receive. I don't deserve this, whatever. We try and prove it wrong with the externals. We look to the externals to prove it wrong. And so my people need to like break through and have a different breakthrough, that come out of hiding, honor their needs. But instead of going to the externals to prove it wrong, or even just doing personal growth work, to me, it all has to go back to the conscious and subconscious ideas, stories, beliefs, experiences you have with the source of all life and abundance, with the one who created you, with the one who's designed this universe to be abundant in the resources you need. And oh my gosh, do people have baggage around God? Even God is thought as being if you have a Christian tradition, God is separate. He's in heaven. I'm down here. Money and God don't go together. I have to do good and do more and do right, or else I won't get to be with God when I die in heaven. That whole separation destination thinking even is in our culture in terms of our relationship with God.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because I was going to say our relationship with money, but you just went to a whole nother level.
No.
Yeah.
Our relation. So what happens, and I'll just be really spicy, is at a subconscious level, you got this God who's separate from you, who maybe is a punishing God or a judgmental God, that there's the threat, especially if you're exposed to Christian traditions, that if you don't do good or do right or whatever, you could go to hell and be like, that's anti-survival. We've kind of bought into a disconnection from source, especially when it comes to money. And so what happens in some respects, looking for security, looking for our worth, looking for peace, looking for this, like money, accomplishment, achievement, production, that becomes our God.
Interesting.
And I'm here about that's what happened in the Israelites. They were slaves in Egypt and they had to work and work and work, and that's what proved their worth, etc. It's like, I'm like, let's free ourselves of that. Let's go back and reclaim your connection to this generous, overflowing source and resource who only wants you to have what you need to fully live let's go back and find our inherent worth. Let's go back and connect and work with that and let that flow through us. There's where our wholeness comes from. There's where our worth comes from. Now we don't have to do all these machinations to prove it and to fix it, because we're not broken.
Yeah.
We just think there's a broken connection, and there is, but it's not on God's side.
Yeah. That's really interesting. It's a way to look at it through such a different lens, and just to say, okay, I can come back home to me, be in my space, be in my being, be here present, and acknowledge that there's plenty of abundance around me.
Yeah.
And that changes the energy of everything you're working with at that point.
Yeah. And I'm not the source of any of it. It's just gift that I can receive. And that's humbling too. Our ego's like, oh, I should deserve it. I have to earn it, or I'm no. But it's like, no, it's like a hummingbird does not have to earn the nectar and the flowers. Yeah. It's just like there can come the freedom and the peace and the wholeness and the fulfillment and all the things that we think getting this and doing this will give us, it's right
Hmm.
here, right now, with every breath we take. And the real scarcity is when we don't know we're part of something bigger. There's not this, what I call sacred archetype of abundance. That's the foundation of the
Hmm.
universe. It's a whole different game.
Hmm.
When we don't know that, or when, through no fault of our own, access to what we need is blocked.
Right.
And that
Right.
does happen in our world.
Yeah.
It's
So I have
not
a
like it's
question
not
for you.
available, but it's like it gets
Yeah.
blocked. The flow gets
Yeah.
blocked.
So and I so agree. It's like, we can clear out our spaces, our energetic spaces around us of all the noise, all the stories, all the trash that we've kind of put around us. And we start to open up to this different way of being.
Mhm.
And I think the question that I have for you, and because it's not just that we just open up to a different way of being, and then it just starts flowing to us and magically. I mean, that's not what happens. But what happens is we have to do our work and continue to keep, what's my purpose? How am I meant to make a difference? How am I meant to show up and serve with my gifts of who I am, and taking, the energy to move forward with that. And that while you're moving forward with that, still maintaining that
Yeah.
openness, right?
It's why I have people go back to the breath, and it's
Hmm.
like, okay, and then go to that middle thing. How do I utilize what I've been given, what's
There you
here,
go.
what's available
Awesome.
to me, in ways that truly support my health and well being, physical, mental,
Yeah.
emotional, spiritual, that leave me fulfilled, that create like that?
Yeah.
And how am I meant to share those resources
Exactly.
in a way that gives life to the world
Exactly.
around me so that I continue to participate in the flow, not block it?
Exactly. That's that breathing in and the breathing out part of it. I mean, it's
Yep.
like the
And
giving
the right
back,
in
right?
between is that learning. And the biggest thing
Yeah.
is we utilize what we receive in service of, let me get to more and to prove like that. It's like, one person once asked, when I was starting to get the God piece, which is, I think, the missing piece. It's like, how could we expect to really experience true abundance disconnected from the source of abundance? Like, seems obvious, but because I'm getting my cherry, right? Um, but the problem is, oftentimes, what this is where you have to work at. Oftentimes, what starts to happen is, because we're so baked into, got to get my chair, got to get over there, got to get there, that then we start to use God and our connection with God and being centered as the new strategy to get there.
Yeah. I mean, you've heard too
And
much of that around. It's like, just manifest it, right? Just, put it out there
it,
to manifest. And it's like, that's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying
no,
to
it's
do.
participating in something
Exactly. Oh, I
bigger.
love it.
It's
Yeah.
participating in something bigger than us. So we have to
Mm.
receive. I remember a book that a coach told me about. I don't remember the book. I don't remember the author, but I remember one thing he gleaned from it. And it was said they did a study that the most successful people are generous. The
Mm.
least successful people are generous.
Oh, interesting.
The difference is that the first group of people include themselves in their generosity.
That's
And
beautiful.
oftentimes what happens for least successful is they don't understand how to I need to be filled. I need the resources that I need oxygen to all my cells. Otherwise I really can't give to the trees like that.
Right.
And
Right.
so this is the soup I play in. And as I said, I'm stepping into 25 years ago, an event happened that planted this seed on me about scarcity. And I was like, it is such an illusion. And, in terms of hunger, in terms of poverty, in terms of all of it, since the 70s, we've known there are enough tangible resources that everyone could live a meaningful and productive life, food, whatever. So it's not that they're not available, but what's blocking the flow? And that seed got planted, and then I continued on my journey, wallowing in scarcity and discovering it. And as I began to see this archetype of scarcity and then this divine archetype of abundance that you see in nature. And then I coined the phrase musical chairs. One day I said, we got to create a new game. We got to create
Yeah.
a world where there's a chair for everyone,
Yeah.
which is like, boom. And my competitive types who've got to get a chair, they're like, well, what's the point of that? Right? What's the fun of that? And it's like, well, think about it. If we have a chair for everyone, we got music playing, we got people dancing, we got people chatting in a circle that gets bigger and bigger. Sounds like a party to me. Okay. Like that's what I'm up to. And so this idea has been there. And right now I'm literally in this time of transition. This is the work I've done and I still do with clients, but I'm really feeling like that's almost like that's safe and that's secure now. But it's time for me to start to pull together a community of people who love this vision and mission, recognizing that a chair for everyone includes a chair for you. So
Yeah.
part of that is like, how do I make sure I have the perfect right size fit chair for me?
Yeah.
And how can I do that in a way that supports, a chair for everyone? So I'm just in the process of, I'll be changing some things on my website and structuring the community. And how am I going to host this conversation? Because I don't have all the answers. I have some unique perspectives, but it's mine to host the conversation and challenge the models that we have that keep us playing musical chairs, that
Yeah.
block the flow, that to challenge the definition of abundance and the justifications we have, especially in Western society,
Yeah.
for more and more and more. Once I'll quick, I know we're at time, but once I did this, and I would wish I could demonstrate it right now, but once I was at a retreat, I was facilitating. Some questions came up from some people who were well off financially, but they sometimes felt guilty for being so well off, especially when others weren't. And that's another form of scarcity. And it's like, how do we help them? And I grabbed this carafe of water. I was going to use it for something else in a pitcher. And I said, well, this is what guilt oftentimes has you do. It's like you're the carafe and the waters, abundance, money, whatever you want to see flowing in. And your guilt has you almost as soon as it gets in the carafe, you start spilling it out trying to help people. Okay. So I was pouring this in this carafe and at the same time pouring out, made a mess, dropped the carafe like that. He said, that's not the way. And then I said, imagine you're this carafe and you let yourself be filled. And then there came a point where it started to overflow. Right. And they're like, oh, and then in a moment of like divine inspiration, I said, but you know what we're taught to do? The moment we get to this place where we're filled and overflowing, we think we should get a bigger carafe. And I grabbed a pitcher. And then that's how we so often keep ourselves in an experience of not enough, because suddenly I was fulfilled, but now I need a bigger carafe. And now you're in, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's like,
Right.
that's this sufficiency of abundance is a missing piece. And that's, I think, is part of what I'm meant to bring to the conversation.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's an important part of it is to really, and I think you bring some really interesting perspectives on abundance, on scarcity, and I think even just the visuals that you can create with it, right? You've done some really beautiful visuals for us, and so I think it's really thought provoking for our listeners. Where can people learn more about you and your work?
Best place is to go to my website, teresaromain.com. A couple of things. I do not have an H in my name. I got the H knocked out of me a long time ago. If you go to Teresa Romain with an H, you'll find a romance novelist. That's not me. And while I eat a lot of romaine lettuce, I do not have an E at the end of my name. So
Yeah.
that's the best place. And again, if you go there, get on my mailing list because things are evolving and changing as I step into this mission. And the other place, about the only social media place, instead of trying to do a lot, I do Facebook more than anything. I have a LinkedIn, I have Instagram, but I rarely go there. So if you really want to engage with me, then Facebook is the place.
Excellent. Excellent. And then the final question I always close with is, what are three pearls of wisdom that you'd like to leave with us today?
Life isn't meant to be the struggle you think
Mhm.
it's supposed to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
In fact, when you're struggling over a period of time, you're probably in scarcity. So that would be
Mm.
one. Nothing outside of you, no amount of money, your house, your debt, none of that changes your inherent worth and value and your belonging and role here in this world. Doesn't change it, doesn't add to it, doesn't measure it. And when you can get that not in your head, but like literally in your body, mm, there's what you're looking for, my friends. And the other thing is there is no hurry. There
Yeah.
is no hurry. The if you think about when we try and breathe fast and hurry, we just create pressure and stress and scarcity. There is no hurry. There is a rhythm to life, and some of us are tomato plants, and from the moment the seed is planted and nurtured, it can produce red fruit in 3 months or so. And some of us are apple trees, and it will take years to produce red fruit, but the entire time we are still 100% apple. We are still 100% tomato. And so again, the fruit, the money, the results, that's not what makes you abundant.
Yeah.
That abundance is what you are. And if you allow that life to grow and express, and you'll grow branches, maybe one day you'll produce fruit.
Mm.
And then the fruit isn't for you, it's for the world. But
Mm.
all the
So good.
time, you're
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
abundant.
So good. Teresa, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom, and just it's been a delight. Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank
joining
you.
me.
I've had fun.
Yeah,
I hope your listeners get value from it as well.
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much.